Shabbat shalom. No, Shabbat shalom. Happy Wednesday, family. I'm sorry. Happy Wednesday evening. Glory and honor to the Heavenly Father, the creator of all things, the Most High, above all, the creator of all, and the Father of the Messiah, the atonement for our sins of Israel, and the perfection of righteousness on our behalf before the Father, who will soon return and become king of the restored planet Earth. Glory and honor to Messiah YHWH. Glory and honor to the King, the Heavenly Father. Greetings to the awakening 12 tribes of Israel, the children of Jacob, whose name was changed to Yashar'al. Greetings to the 144,000, the forerunners of the return of Messiah, the soon return, and the establishment of the Messianic kingdom. Greetings to the precious souls from among the Gentiles who have received the truth of the perfect righteousness of the Father and the truth of the true Hebrew people in the world today and have been grafted into the family. Greetings. Greetings to the chat, Brother Castle King, Brother Stephen Kelly, Brother Thesia, Stephen Kelly again, Brother Sister Jillian, JJ Glasgow also, Superstar, Brother Baldy, Sister Love Blue, Yafi. Greetings to all of you. Today, man, there's so much going on, put it that way. I had a title called How You Rich Men, and I just changed it. I changed it to The Perfect Storm because that's where we're at. A perfect storm is a situation where all different types of events come together to create something. Okay. All the different phases come together to create something. Greetings, Brother Ricky Boy 144, Sister Najia Wade. Greetings to you, Brother Superstar, and your daughter Janaya. I'm sorry, and your granddaughter. Oh my gosh, so cute, granddaughter. Greetings to all of you, and to, of course, Yvette. Blessings to all of you. Praise the Most High. It was such a blessing. I just want to say again, it was such a blessing this weekend to fellowship. My wife was telling me I didn't expect it to be that powerful. And I told her the Spirit is capable of great things, right? And all we needed to do was meet, because the same Spirit that actuates all of us, it's the same Spirit that causes all of us to have a love for the Father and to seek the glory of the Father and a love for His Word. And just those simple things creates the Spirit, the synergy that causes us to be blessed in each other's company. And so we really praise the Most High for that. And, we may not have many of them left. We probably be able to, by the grace of the Father, get together next year, maybe 2027. Doubtful for anything after that. But while we can, we praise the Most High for it. So let me first explain to you what the federal deficit means. What is a federal deficit? We need to understand that because first we understand that the United States of America is the beast that looks like a lamb and speaks like a dragon of Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. So being that that's the United States, and when we're looking at that beast, it tells us certain character traits. It tells us, for example, that it speaks as a dragon, which means it's deceiving the earth. It's deceiving, which means it looks like it represents a lamb, but it's actually a dragon. The lamb represents Messiah. The dragon represents Satan. So it looks like it portrays itself as if it's representing Messiah, but it's really representing Satan. It also says that it exercises all the power of the first beast, which is Rome. It exercises all the power of Rome, which means it's Rome's power being exercised through the United States. and that it causes the earth and them that dwell in the earth to worship. So that it's the driving force of world movements because it causes the entire earth to do stuff. Okay. Now, based on that, everything is going to be circling around, moving through. You're going to see through the United States a lot of stuff. Akaran Banya, shalom, my brother. Shalom to you and your beautiful, beautiful family. Praise the Most High. Again, another blessing to see Akaran Banya and his beautiful family, his son Crust, his little girls. Oh my God. So one of them is so tall. I call her Iman. Her name is Amani, but she looks like Iman. If y'all remember the model Iman, she looked like Iman, a model. And she's only 13, but she's real tall. And then these little two look like twins. So cute. Oh my God. Had me just laughing, smiling, just looking at her. And Jacobo, my brother, and Stephen Kelly again. Yes. So praise the Most High. Where was I? Yes. So let's talk about budget deficits. Yeah, Abuela and Ahaya. Yes. Oh my God. Oh man. Then there's the basketball player. That's the shorter one. But Iman don't like basketball. She's the volleyball player. That's amazing. So what is a budget deficit? You hear a lot, do you not? Almost weekly, right? About the deficit, about how big the deficit is, about how much problems it is. Have you heard that? Have you ever heard that the United States of America has a budget deficit? Did you ever wonder what that means? What is a budget deficit and how does it come about? And why is it important in final events? So yes, the government overspends, but that's a simplified way, very simplified way, but it's true what Castle King said. But when they overspend, where do they get the money? So in other words, they are short on the amount of what they spend based on what they bring in. So the government brings in money from taxes. Okay. So they bring in money from income taxes, corporate taxes. They bring in money that way. Okay. So that's where they get their money from. They get their money from taxes. So a deficit means that the amount of tax money they bring in is not enough to cover what they spend. So they got to get money from somewhere else. Everybody got me so far? So they get money from taxes, but it's not enough. So they got to borrow money. And so they borrow money from another source to cover that money they don't have. That's what creates the deficit. It's like if somebody has a household, right, and you got bills, you got your rent or your mortgage to pay, you got, your light bill to pay, your car note, and you don't have enough in your income where you're bringing in the revenues you're bringing in is from your job, your employment, your income, right? So you don't have enough of your income to cover what you got to spend. So how do you make it up? Well, most people make it up by credit cards, right? So you might use your credit cards to make up the deficit. So then your credit card bills go up because you're trying to make up a deficit. So where do they get the money? They get the money by issuing government bonds. So the United States government bond is considered the most secure bond in the world. And they issue bonds by the billions. And other countries buy these bonds. China being the biggest purchaser of United States government bonds is China. But almost all countries, all the major countries have government bonds from the United States. Now, the United States issues these bonds, and there's a face value, and then there's an interest on the bonds. So they got to pay the interest on the bonds every year. That's where our deficit comes, because just the interest on the bonds adds up to trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars. We're not even talking about the principal. We're talking about just interest. And so in order to make it even, in other words, in order to get the deficit to where it's matching what you're actually bringing in taxes, you have a couple of ways to do that. You can cut what you're spending, or you can raise taxes. Does that make sense? So in other words, if you are running your household and you're short and your credit card bills are piling up and you're just paying now, you can't even pay the principal on your credit card. You're just paying interest and it just keeps growing, right? But if you can get an increase in your income, then that would offset all the debt you have. So let's say you got a big job raise. You went to school and got another degree or so whatever, and you got a huge raise, right? And let's say your wife did the same thing, and then let's say you might have had an inheritance or something. So you got revenues now come in that allow you to pay down your debt and even pay it off, right? So the United States situation is such that if they were to raise taxes, they could reduce or eliminate their debt, because then they'd be bringing in more money from their main source of revenue, which is taxes, and paying off the bonds that they owe. Okay, the interest on the bonds that they owe. But they don't do that. They don't do that. So let's talk about how. So, well, put it this way. The current government, as well as governments before this one, they prefer to not raise taxes, which is the easiest way to get it done. They prefer to cut the budget. Now, the problem is every president promises to cut spending and the deficit still increases, which tells us that, again, they're politicians, so they're lying. Or they cut the spending and the savings from the spending doesn't go to pay the debt. It goes in the pockets of rich people. Okay? Now, the Bible talks about one of the downfalls of Israel, one of the downfalls of our forefathers, which is the same as the downfall of this nation and of this system that we're in. One of the downfalls, it was comparing Israel to Sodom and Gomorrah, which the Most High has done several occasions in the Bible. But in Ezekiel, let's take a look in Ezekiel. Let's see here. Ezekiel chapter 16. Ezekiel chapter 16. Man, you got to read that chapter when you get a chance, but I'm going to find exactly what I'm looking for here. But Ezekiel chapter 16. Try to find it fast. Ezekiel 16:49. Ezekiel 16. Yes, that's what it was. Ezekiel 16:49. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to read from verse 48 of Ezekiel 16 down to verse 50. So 48, 49, and 50. Ezekiel 16:48. That's what I'm looking for. 48, 49, and 50. As I live, saith the Most High Yahweh, Sodom, thy sister, hath not done, nor she nor her daughters, as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom: pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy, and they were haughty and committed abomination before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw good. So in Sodom, they did not help the poor. They were haughty in their attitude. They were prideful. Okay, and they got real comfortable in their pride. Does that sound familiar? And they were haughty and committed abominations. So check this out. So 80%, 80% of households in the United States that are over 65 are in financial difficulty, or they're at risk of falling into an economic security. More and more senior citizens are homeless and living in cars and vans. It's actually a movement. I forgot what they call it, but a lot of senior citizens that cannot support themselves on their Social Security are living in cars and vans, and more every year. In fact, 11% of seniors live below the poverty line in the United States. And of course, in the United States, there's a large percentage of children that go to bed hungry every night. See, people don't think about that. There's a large percentage of children that go to bed hungry every night. Okay. So, and now let's talk about Social Security. Most seniors live on Social Security. Okay. In the United States. Now, what is Social Security? Think about the word now. Social Security. Okay. What is it? Social Security. What is that? That was created by Franklin Delano Roosevelt as part of the New Deal. And it was a social program to give senior citizens security, a retirement security, or at least a help and aid toward retirement security. Okay. So it was a social government program created to give senior citizens security. And so part of cutting the budget to cover the deficit, they're thinking about cutting Social Security. Also, Medicare and Medicaid. These are also programs that were created in the 1960s to help senior citizens when they got older to pay for medical costs, because the older somebody gets, the more likely they're going to need medical assistance. And so these programs were created to help pay for medical assistance for senior citizens. So when you get 65 years old, you automatically get Medicare. You qualify. And that covers major, like if you got a catastrophic hospital event, covers that. Okay. And then you could pay a little extra into it and get covered for specialists and things. Medicaid covers what Medicare will not in terms of cost living, senior citizen living expenses. In other words, my father, for example, he got to a certain age, he had a heart attack and a stroke. And so his Medicare covered the hospital stay. Medicaid covered him for 100 days in the nursing home. After 100 days, they were going to charge him between $12,000 and $15,000 per month to stay in a nursing home, stay in a facility. They call it a facility. Now, I told you my daddy was a big time saver. And what he did, my father retired in 1995 at the age of 55. So when I came down here in 2022, I had not seen his financials. I didn't know exactly what he had. I knew a little bit about what he had because I helped him put some of the instruments into place, but I didn't know exactly everything he had, but I know my father. So they were asking how much cash he had. And it was very easy because I know my father. So whatever his pension was, which he got a pension, I knew he was going to save that. He was not going to spend his pension. He was going to live off his Social Security. He paid cash for his house and his car. And so he was going to live off his Social Security. He would only take money out of his retirement accounts to pay property taxes or any taxes he might owe the government. Otherwise, he wouldn't touch it. So just knowing what he would get in a pension, I knew how much money he saved, and I guessed it to the penny. They said, how do you know that? I said, because I know my father. Okay. So because of just saving his pension, for over 30, almost 30 years, I know he had a lump sum of money. Aside from everything else he saved, he had a lump sum of money. And so we were fortunate when they came to us and said, well, Medicaid is not going to cover your father, and we're going to be charging you 12 to 15,000 a month. It would be 12,000 if he shared a room. It would be 15,000 if he had a private room. Now, this is the place I thought was good, but I would have to come in there and make them change his diaper, make them bathe him. Okay. It was to the point I was so mad that if it wasn't for the grace of the Most High, I would have committed a crime, because they were telling me they were doing these things, but only when one of the nurses pulled me aside and said, only when you come in do they take care of him. If you don't come in, they don't take care of him. So I was thinking to myself, they want to charge us $12,000 to $15,000 per month for care that's supposed to, I thought, was the best available. And that's what it was. Okay. Then they would have something like 60 patients on the floor and only one nurse to take care of all of them. 1 to 2. That's it. Okay. And they would keep you as long as you had money. When you ran out of money, then Medicaid would kick in, but you had to show you had no assets. You had to show you had no money. You had to show all your money was gone. You had to prove it. And you can't just give it to your kids. They won't count that. And so when I saw that, I took the money that my father had saved from his pension, and I bought him and my mother a little house. And then I used that also to help get private nurses for him. Now, once we got him out of that hellhole, he only lived another 4 or 5 months. But I was preparing for him to live, 20 years and just budget that. I had to really budget that money with the private nursing. Okay. Medicaid claimed they would send a nurse. That nurse would come once a week, or once a day for an hour, and then come and go. Okay. The private nurses, praise the Most High for them, they were taking care of him. So, but not everybody's my father. Most people are not. Okay. We live in a retirement community. So a lot of people that come here are retired and have some assets, but even some of them are struggling because the cost of living is crazier, higher than what they anticipated when they were retiring. And so their money is dwindling. Okay. And so they don't know what to do. And then you combine that with the effects of old age. When I came here, I had to have all kind of work done in the house. My father, once he got to be like 80, he couldn't take care of this house no more. He couldn't watch out for it. People were coming here claiming they did work, and he was just writing checks. I saw it. I said, Pop, what are you writing a check for? He said, I got to pay them. I said, they ain't doing anything. And I thought to myself, how long has this been going on? I fired all of them. I said, you have to leave. Don't come back. Here's your money. Don't come back. Are you unsatisfied? I'm unsatisfied, but don't worry about it. I'm taking over. Because they would have just drained him. Because he was too old. He didn't know what was going on. And there's a lot of people like that. I see them every day. So when you take that situation where even people that save money and put money away, their system is draining the money. They're not getting care. And then the care they would get is being cut. The Trump administration getting ready, they cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. So a lot of people that live on these things are going to struggle. They're going to struggle. See, now, I would say, now I'm 64. So I would say when I was about 54, about 10 years ago, I started really looking at my wife and I's retirement. And I know we didn't have much, but my plan was to use Social Security with whatever we could save and move to another country. In fact, that's still the plan. I mean, we're much better. The Most High blessed us in this last 10 years. So we'll be all right. But I'm saying that was the plan. I was going to use the Social Security and save much as I could and get out this country. and go to whatever country I could where the cost of living was cheaper than here. And that's why we're looking at all kinds of countries. And it didn't matter to me as long as the cost of living was lower. And my goal was to just live on my Social Security and save hers. Okay, go someplace where we can make that happen, right? So, but I was thinking about this 10 years ago. A lot of people don't think like that. So they don't know this is all coming on them, especially a lot of the children of your Fed. Most of the recipients of Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security are children of your Fed. And the interesting thing is, most of the seniors that are going to be affected by these cuts are in Republican states. Now, this is crazy, isn't it? The Republican states that voted for the current president are the ones suffering the most from the policies of the current president. And yet they vote for him. Why? Because there's a delusion. The delusion has been created, and there's confusion with the delusion. And they were under the false impression that because he's one of them, at least they thought, that they would be beneficiaries of his policies. But instead, they're being screwed. Just today, I saw a video where a man was talking about, because Trump was talking about not taxing. You heard this, he's not going to tax overtime. But this man today, I think he's a truck driver. He said, I looked at the bill. He said, it's BS. I voted for Trump, he said. He said, I voted for Trump. And he said, it's not going to help me because it's the limits of cutting the overtime stops at $100,000. And he was like, if you're a full-time truck driver, a full-time plumber, electrician, or a tradesman of any kind in any major city on the East Coast or the West Coast, you make more than $100,000. And you're working more than 40 hours. So once you make $100,000, you don't get your overtime to be non-taxed. And then there's a limit of the non-tax to $10,000. So there's a $10,000 limit of overtime. And if you're making over $100,000, you don't qualify. So those people are screwed. Okay. And so now, and then of course, the farmers are complaining because all of those border risks they were talking about are being deported, or they won't show up there for work for fear of being deported, and they got to milk their own cows. They got to pick their own strawberries. And so they are now feeling the problem that they thought their boy was going to help them with. That's just one part of it, though. So you got a deficit that's continuing to balloon because the United States, the government, the rich, put it this way, in the United States Senate, in the Senate, there are 2 senators for each state. So there's 50 states in the United States. Each state gets 2 senators. Okay? So there's 100 senators in the Senate. The 100 senators, all of them, are millionaires. They get 6-year terms and free health insurance, plus pensions, and they're millionaires. All of them. Now you tell me, how does somebody that's supposed to be a public servant by getting voted into the Senate becomes a millionaire? How does that happen? You're supposed to be a public servant, right? So the millionaires and the people, so they're getting broke off, right? I mean, right? They're getting broke off. They're getting broke off. You kick some money to my campaign, I'll make sure this bill goes through that helps you. It's corruption. They're getting broke off. Okay, so now the people that are getting broke off like that, why would they make any law that would be of any detriment to the people breaking them off? So if Amazon is supporting me and contributing to my campaign, and I'm a millionaire, why would I do anything to hurt Jeff Bezos? Why would I do anything to hurt him? Why would I do anything that he wouldn't like? Or do I just want to please him all the time, make sure I keep getting cut off, make sure I keep getting broke off? I need some money, right? So the system is corrupt, and it's just getting more corrupt because of greed. You got all these flower children that think, if we could all just love each other. As long as greed exists on planet Earth, you will always have what you have now. As long as greed exists. Greed will cease to exist when all people who are greedy are destroyed. That's when greed will cease to exist. When all greedy people and the king of the spirit of greed, which is our Satan, when they're all destroyed, there'll be no more greed. But as long as they live, you will have greed. And as long as you have greed, you're going to have what you have right now. Then it is estimated that between 100,000 and 150,000 people in the United States every day are being sex trafficked. Every day. Just the United States. That's not even talking about other countries, which is big worldwide. It's a $1 billion industry worldwide. But just in the United States, between 100,000 and 150,000, mostly females, are being trafficked, sex trafficked daily. I remember I brought this up one time, and some child of your fet that don't know nothing try to tell me that's because you have no security at the southern border. No, it's because white men want that. That's why it exists. The demand, you see, we live in a society of supply and demand. It's very simple. So if some product or service is in demand, there will be created a supply for that product or service. So the reason there's 100,000 to 150,000 that they know about, that's what they know about. Mostly females, many underage being sex trafficked, is because there's a demand for the use of sex trafficked victims. If there was no demand, there would be no supply. So the demand just tells you how much the supply is. Or should I say, the supply tells you how great the demand is. So you have underage kids being sex trafficked. You got 80% of senior citizens in financial trouble. Can't afford to live on what they're bringing in retirement. You're cutting the systems designed to support people that are poor. And you're giving tax benefits. The greatest beneficiaries of tax breaks in this administration are people that make over $500,000 a year. The greatest beneficiaries. They give everybody a tax cut, but if you make 50 grand or less, you're going to get a whole $300 more in your pay for the year. A whole $300 extra next year. That's your tax cut. But if you make 500,000 or more, you're going to get a $60,000 tax cut. That sounds a little better, doesn't it? So you got greedy people helping other greedy people, hurting poor people. And this is what caused the Most High to destroy, among other things, to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. That's what he said. He said, I took them away as I saw good. Okay? I took them away as I saw good. Now, as an example of what I just talked about, now we're talking about a perfect storm. So we have poor people getting less help, rich people getting richer, right? Debt on a national level growing daily. And then, of course, let's talk about, about the weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, fires, earthquakes, striking places all over the United States, and major catastrophes happening every season. Hurricane season brings some, tornadoes bring some, floods. Of course, there's fires. They're happening more frequently. And then you're talking about earthquakes striking. Earthquake hit Tennessee last week. It was only 4 point something on the Richter scale, but still, they're coming. Okay, so you have that happening. plus the greed, plus the poverty. Now, you're talking about China, but China's not the only one. But you got China and you got other countries that the United States owes money to in interest. We're not even talking about the principal. They owe money in interest, which is why, what will the United States do if they owe a lot of people money and they don't feel like paying it back? What they going to do? What you think they'll do? What would they do in an effort to get out of that debt? You think they're just going to give China all their land? What you think? That's right. It's going to be war, obviously. Why do you think the president wants the minerals out of the Ukraine? He said, I'm going to help you end this Russian war, but I need your minerals. I need the minerals out the ground of your land. See, it comes down to war. It comes down to war. See, so that's coming. We know that's coming. It's all coming together. Now, at the same time, as an example, I put it in the description box. There's a couple. What's the name? Savannah. No, it's what's the name of this couple, man? There's this couple. They were supposedly reality TV stars. I forgot their name. They were supposedly reality TV stars. This couple, okay, and they were convicted of fraud because of their success, so-called, of reality TV, right? They went to banks and they put in false tax returns and false documents, and they got tens of millions of dollars in bank loans. And they used that money to live large. You know, they live large on that money, right? So they got caught, and the husband got, I want to say the husband got 15 years and the wife got like 7 years. Okay. So the husband got 15 years, the wife got 7 years. This was a children of the effect couple. And they were supposed to be reality TV. That's interesting how they call it reality TV. And it ain't even reality. And people be deluded by watching it, right? So anyway, they were in this reality TV show. I'd never heard of them before this event. And apparently they were very well known. And they used that fame to walk into banks and get tens of millions of dollars of loans with false tax documents, false bank statements, false statements, and they were convicted of fraud, bank fraud. The little girl, the little blonde-haired girl, was saying this is unfair, right? This is not fair. And she was one of the speakers at the Republican convention for Trump. So guess what Trump's doing? He said, that's terrible what they did to your parents. So he pardoned the parents. He pardoned them. They both been in jail 2 years. They got out today, I think. He pardoned both of them. So these people have been convicted of fraud, of stealing tens of millions of dollars from banks. The little girl, the little Becky, said, this is not fair. You treated my parents bad. They sent them to jail. All they did was steal $30 or $40 million. They shouldn't go to jail for that. And Trump said, you're right. And I'm going to pardon them. And he did. Yeah, Chrisley. I think the name was Chrisley there. Something like that. Yeah, Chrisley. That's what it is. Savannah Chrisley was the daughter's name. And she's like, my parents are free. You know, she was all tripping. But that is emblematic of the society we live in right now. People are deluded. And they're purposely receiving the delusion. Just like the Bible tells us, it looks like a lamb and speaks like a dragon and exercises all the power of the beast before him. And the beast before him received his power, seat, and authority from the dragon. And the beast before him rules the earth and deceives the earth. Remember what Daniel said? By craft. Same. This country is a miniature of that. This system is that. So it doesn't take much of a prophet to know what's coming. See, so you got poverty against the elderly. You got greed on the rich. And in fact, the greed and the thievery is being rewarded. You got white supremacy thinking that it's going to rule forever. And with their white Jesus and their white Christianity, they think they're going to be blessed. And we know what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. The angels came that night and told Lot, get whoever you can and get out of here, because we have been told to come here and destroy this place. And that night it was destroyed. And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, it was just like any other day, the day that it was destroyed. The Bible said they didn't even know until that day came and destroyed them. Just like the flood, they were being warned. Lot was the prophet. Lot represented the 144,000. Remember now, it was Lot, his wife, his 3 sons, and their 3 wives. 7. It was Lot plus 7. 7 is a perfect number. It was Lot plus 7. Lot was the 144,000. The 7 was the rest of what was then the assembly. Does that make sense? So Lot was telling the earth, this place is going to be destroyed. They did not take heed to him, but instead the Bible tells us what they did. Look at Jude. Let's look at Jude again, that small book that has a lot of information in it. Jude tells us how they were thinking at that time. In Jude, it's only one chapter. Jude, I'm going to begin at verse 14. Jude, verse 14, and I'm going to read down to verse 16, because that's describing the pre-flood attitude toward the truth. Jude, verse 14 to verse 16. And Enoch also, the 7th from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, behold, Yahweh cometh with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of their ungodly deeds, which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches, which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. These are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lusts, and their mouth speaking great swelling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage. So because they're famous, because they're on TV, because they're loud. They're famous, loud, and on TV, and they speak the itching ear doctrine. People receive it until the flood came and destroyed them all. And so at the same time, we're seeing this greed, poverty, corruption, natural disasters. At the same time, we're seeing this false religious system rise, and you're going to see more of that. You're going to see a revival of white Jesus Christianity. I call it white Jesus Christianity, but I should just call it Christianity because it's all white Jesus, So, but Christianity is about white supremacy. Always has been, always will be. That's what it was founded on. Okay. But you're going to see a revival of it. It's already started. Okay. And then you're going to see it all be destroyed. At the same time, here we are. We're meeting on a small scale. But the Spirit was moving. Can somebody bear witness? The Spirit was moving among us with power last week. Was it not? Am I lying to you? The Spirit was moving among us with power. We saw testimonies. We saw people getting closer to the Most High. We saw people giving their lives to the Most High. The Spirit was moving heavy among us last week. That's going on at the same time. All the rest of this is going on. So as we are growing in the Spirit of the Father, and we are growing in righteousness of the Father, the world is becoming more rotten at the same time. It's a perfect storm that will come and culminate in the return of the Messiah and the destruction of the entire system. Suddenly, and of course, overwhelmingly powerful. overwhelmingly powerful, like nothing anybody has ever seen before. That's what's coming. Like nothing anybody has ever seen before. Bigger than the flood, bigger than Sodom and Gomorrah. It's going to be bigger than all of that. It's coming. Okay. And it's coming quickly. We know that it's coming because the word is showing us it's coming, but the world won't see what we're seeing because they're in the world. Right? And again, let's look at First John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2, beginning at verse 15. 1 John chapter 2, beginning at verse 15 and going down to verse 17. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of the Most High Yah abideth forever. So what is the world? You know, when I was in the Christian church, they'll say, don't be like the world. And they equated that to how you dressed, to the music you listen to. They equated that with the world. But that's not what this verse is saying. Again, we praise the Most High that we read the scriptures, and it shows us what the world is. This verse goes with what we read in Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 49. The iniquity is pride, fullness of bread, abundance of idleness, haughtiness, the worship of other gods. That's the world. Okay, that's the world. That's why the Messiah said, my kingdom is not of this world. What did he mean? He mean this system, a system that's corrupt, that's led by Rome, who people support the corruption. And that's what we got. I don't want to sound too hard because I was here with y'all at one point, but I'm just going to say it. If you believe in the American government enough to start voting for any of these candidates, you're supporting the world. I voted many times. In fact, I voted in every election from 1988 to 2008. Actually, I voted in 2016 also. That's the last time I voted, 2016. So I'm not speaking in trying to judgment. I'm not. But I didn't realize how stupid I was and what I was doing. Barack Obama opened my eyes. You know, D.C. used to be called Chocolate City. D.C. used to be called Chocolate City. D.C. is not a rainbow city. Anybody that live in D.C. know what I'm talking about. D.C. used to be Chocolate City. It's not a rainbow city. Okay. And I'll be honest, I never voted for a Democrat until Barack Obama. And I just be honest, I voted for him because he was black. I wanted to see a black man in the White House. I ain't gonna front. In fact, I didn't even care what his policies was. I wanted to see somebody with brown skin walking into the White House. That's all. But then once he got elected and I started then looking at what he was supporting and what his policy was, I was like, damn. But then I voted for him again in 2012, the next election. Yeah, 2012 was the last time I voted. I didn't even vote in 2016. 2012 was the last time I voted. And he got me, and I felt my heart smote me. You know what happened with David when Nathan came to him after he had Hittite Uriah killed for Bathsheba, and when Nathan broke it down that he was the one, and he said his heart smote him. When I voted for Barack Obama in 2012, my heart smote me. Because I started seeing, I was in D.C. I was living in D.C. and I started seeing the takeover of the rainbow. It was ridiculous. It turned from Chocolate City to the rainbow because of that man. He was placed in power for that purpose. Okay. And so I felt my heart smoked me and I felt bad. I got bamboozled. I got hoodwinked. And I said, dang, gone, man. I can't do this no more. I can't. So 2016, I didn't vote. 2020, I didn't vote. 2024, I didn't vote. But I ain't gonna never vote again. By the grace of the Most High, I'll never vote again because now I'm realizing no matter who you vote for, they're both liars. And they're both part of the world. The haughtiness, the pride. They're working for the rich and hurting the poor. They all do the same thing, brethren. Don't care what color they are, what color their flag is, whether it's red or blue. It don't matter. They all doing the same thing. Ain't no good in Washington. Like I said, what Most High showed me after the last time I voted, if you are clean, right? Let's take your favorite soap. I don't know which one it is. You know, you wash yourself, you scrub your body clean. You know, when I'm clean, my wife said, "Oh, you smell clean. You smell like a clean person." She said, because sometimes I can get funky. She said, "Oh, you smelling clean now." Let's say you cleaned yourself and you smelling clean. You smelling like that soap, right? And then you jump in a pool of dung. You dump in a cesspool. When you come out that cesspool of human dung, or even if it's cow dung, you ain't gonna be smelling clean no more. You're gonna stink. You right? So if you could have cleaned yourself till you was spotless, put oil on and shiny, and if you jumped in a cesspool of dung, you're gonna smell like the dung. The smell of clean will be gone, and it be placed by stink. That's anybody that works in Washington, D.C. as a politician. Any politician that works in state government. Any politician that's in the system has jumped in a cesspool. And the only way you could jump in a cesspool and not stink is if the cesspool got all the dung taken out of it and cleaned out of it. That's the only way. If you jumped in an empty cesspool and it was clean, then you won't stink when you come out. But if it's full of the product that goes in there, you're going to stink. And all politicians and all political systems are a cesspool. So you could be like, and I like using the Boricua from the Bronx, Ocasio-Cortez as an example. Here's a sister, okay? Here's a sister whose parents were poor in the Bronx. Boricua, she's from Puerto Rico. Parents were poor. They were in the Bronx. She struggled and went to Boston University, a very prestigious and expensive school. After 4 years, and she graduated from Boston University, she couldn't get a good job. Puerto Rico from the Bronx, okay? She couldn't get a good job. So she was a bartender, and she owed 6 figures in student loans, okay? Bartender, owed 6 figures in student loans. Somehow, she decided to run for Congress, okay? So she represented her district in the Bronx in running for Congress, and she ended up winning. And so when you are a congressperson in the U.S. Senate, that's not the Senate, that's the Congress. When you're a congressperson in the U.S. Congress, your starting salary is $170,000 a year. That's your starting salary. You get free health care. You get a staff that's paid for by the government that works with you and for you. Okay, and you get that regardless, but you only get it in the Congress now, where the Senate is a 6-year thing. In the Congress, you get it for 2 years. You get it for 2 years. That's why the corporations try to make major deals with the congressmen, because the congressmen, unless they get more money, they're only going to be there for 2 years. So now she's been in that Congress now, what, 6, 7, 8 years now? She's a millionaire now. How did that happen? Poor girl from the Bronx. How did she become a millionaire? By being a congresswoman, public servant. Now, you think she's going to go against the people that hooked her up to get out that $100,000 debt from Boston University, got to that 170 G's a year guarantee plus perks? No, she's not. And why? Because she might have been a clean Boricua when she was in the dirty Bronx, but she went to Washington and she dove into the cesspool and she smells like dung now. It can happen to anybody. That's another way of being bought off. She was bought off. She thought she was going to do good for her little Bronx neighborhood, and maybe she did. But the people that's in power know if we bring her in, we got her. Because she's going to do what we need her to do. Okay, because she had to dive into the cesspool. That's how it works. Okay, it's a corrupt country. The Bible just told us it looks like a lamb, and speaks like a dragon. Therefore, can we agree that Asatan is corrupt? Asatan is corrupt. So if Asatan is corrupt, any system that's under him is corrupt. Does that make sense here? Any system he runs is corrupt. And it's going to be corrupt until it's destroyed. And if whoever it is, NSA, CIA, whatever agency's listening to me now, let me tell you very plainly, our cousin's going to destroy it. You ain't got about me. I ain't coming to Washington with no bombs. But my cousin, oh, he going to give y'all a problem. And my heavenly father, oh, you got a problem coming. See, Noah never said, I'm going to destroy the earth. He never said that. He never said that. No, he said the creator's coming with a flood to destroy the earth. That's why they laughed at him. He wasn't saying, I'm going to destroy the earth. I'm going to get a crew. We're going to run and do game. He didn't say that. He said, my creator is coming with his saints to destroy the earth. Well, my creator is coming with his saints to destroy this whole system very shortly. Okay, very shortly. It's not going to be long. And it can't be. Look, again, the perfect storm. Every year, am I exaggerating if I say to you that the hurricanes are becoming more intense and more frequent as each year goes by? Am I exaggerating, or is that true? Do you notice that the hurricanes are becoming more intense and more frequent as the years go by? Are the tornadoes becoming more intense and more frequent as the years go by? Are the fires becoming more intense and more frequent as the years go by? Have you noticed that? Is the pollution hitting the oceans with more intensity as the years go by? Matter of fact, it was just a few years ago, south of Florida, off the coast of Miami and off the coast of the Florida Keys, the water got so hot it would burn people. That's the ocean water. It got so hot it would burn people. Okay, exactly, Council King, exactly. If you pay homeowners insurance in Florida, you definitely know what I'm talking to you the truth, for sure. Okay, so yeah. So that is going to, and we understand from looking at the word, this is going to continue. It's not going to get any worse, any better. It's going to get worse. The corruption is going to get worse. The delusion is going to get worse. And this is, again, I've seen this. This is the biggest thing I've learned from my next channel. The biggest thing I've learned is how people receive delusion. And they it's almost like they drink it like wine. And then they get drunk off it. And in their drunken stupor, they repeat what they just was told without thinking. So there's no more thought. There's no more thought process. News media thinks for you. And you don't realize they're doing that because you're just so brainwashed. You just listen and receive it and go repeat it. Okay. I mean, Castle King gave a powerful testimony. All y'all, I ain't gonna front. All y'all gave powerful testimonies. What was it, Saturday night? I think it was Saturday night. All y'all gave powerful testimony. But what Castle King's testimony hit me was this. He said, tell me if I'm wrong, Castle King, I don't want to misrepresent, but he said he was looking for people to expound on the word. And he said he would go to church and they would preach on one verse and never expound on the verse, or somebody would wave a Bible around and he was expecting them to open it and read from it and go from it, and they would never do it. So that he was getting frustrated because they weren't really going in the word. They were like pretending like they were going in the word. Right? See that? And I was like, see that's exactly. But see, most people will sit there spellbound by that same thing Castle King was dissatisfied with. He's dissatisfied because he's looking for the word and he's not getting the word. So he's dissatisfied. Most people just sit there and say, oh man, what a powerful sermon. Am I right? Was it? Oh man, that was powerful. Well, what exactly? And with me, I used to be thinking, Man, maybe it's me. I used to think, you know what? Maybe I'm missing something. Everybody seems to be seeing something, but I ain't seen nothing. It's like the king has no clothes on, and everybody's telling him how beautiful the clothes are. And I'm like, is it just me that sees that he's naked? And so I was like, I remember we used to get these preachers and they'd be yelling at the top of their lungs. And I hear them yelling, and their yelling would cause the congregation to yell, but they weren't saying anything. They weren't saying anything. And I'd be like, did I miss it? Why everybody, that pastor was great. We got to bring him back. And I'm like, did he say anything? Because I didn't hear it. I yelled, but I didn't hear nothing. Okay? So as we are getting into the Father's word and continuing to pray to the Father for his spirit, all for his glory, we will see things clearly that the rest of the earth will not see and don't want to see. They will not see and don't want to see. That's the real sad part about it. It's not like it's a secret code from like a secret society and you need special handshakes and special words to understand it. Like what they used to call hidden knowledge. No. It's not hidden, except for those that want to be hidden, that want it to be hidden because they don't want it. The Bible is it's there. See, this is a book. Anybody could buy a Bible and read it and ask the Father for his spirit to guide you in that word. Anybody could do that. We've all seen it. Very simple process. Get on your knees, repent of your sin, ask the Father's spirit to guide you in his word, and he will. Most people don't want to do that, though. You know why? Because they don't want to see the truth, and they don't want to face the truth about themselves. This is especially true of the children of YHWH. They have built up a delusion, especially in the United States of America. Let's be real. The United States of America was largely built on 300 years of free labor. Anytime any businessman gets free labor, the likelihood of that business succeeding just increased, right? Because how could you lose if you're getting free labor? And so you're sending people in the field to plant cotton, to plant tobacco, right? And to plant other vegetables and whatever else. But it's the cotton and the tobacco. You sending them in the field to plant that, and then you sending them in the field to reap it, and you're selling it, and you're not paying them nothing. And they're out there working for you 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. You give them Sundays off so that they can worship your white Jesus. But you do that for 300 years. You can't help but get rich. You can't help but get rich because the product in terms of tobacco and cotton, and let's add sugar, right? Sugar, tobacco, and cotton. That product didn't cost you nothing to produce. So you can sell it for whatever you want and you're going to make money. And if you sell tons of it, you're going to make tons of loot. And if you do it for centuries, you're going to make tons and tons of loot. And so the whole country was built off of that. Okay, the whole country was built off of that. And yet today, they're going to tell you and me that they built it by their own hard work and sweat and by lifting themselves up by their bootstraps. And they're self-sufficient and they want small government. They're deluded. They're deluded and they're self-deluded. Because the minute a Malcolm X rises up and shows them what they really are, they kill him. The minute a Tulsa, Oklahoma rises up and shows them what we could do without them, they burn it down. The minute a Fred Hampton raises up and unifies all poor people from every color, they kill him. And they don't want to even accept that they did that. Can you imagine? The U.S. government killed Malcolm X, and the U.S. government killed Martin Luther King, and the U.S. government killed Fred Hampton. But you don't hear about that. In fact, with the Fred Hampton case, They couldn't even hide it. The police came up there and shot all those bullets into that brother's apartment and made sure, walked in there, eyewitness, oh, he's good and dead. Pow! Made sure he was dead. Shot him in the head one more time to make sure. And you don't hear nothing about that. Why? Because the United States is living in delusion. And the United States is the leading country of the earth. And it's under the power of a religion of Christianity created in Rome. And nobody wants the truth. In fact, as we already know, as we continue in the word, as we continue to seek the Father's Spirit, we'll become public enemies because of our message from the word. Not because we're setting bombs anywhere, robbing banks, killing people. Nah, because of our message from the word. Look, Messiah was put to death for treason. Messiah never created a riot. He never killed anybody. He never even hurt anybody. In fact, he was raising the dead and healing people of diseases they had no cure for. Leprosy especially. Okay? So he was doing that, and yet they violently put him to death because of his message. And because he was a threat to the established order of corruption. You heard what Caiaphas said. Let's look at it. John chapter 11. Gospel of John chapter 11. I'm going to read Gospel of John chapter 11 from verse 40. Let's start at verse 45 and read from verse 45 down to 52. This actually from verse 45 to 53, 9 verses, 45, 53. This is Gospel of John chapter 11 from verse 45 to verse 53. Then many of the Yahudim believed, which came to Miriam and had seen the things that YHWH did, believed on him. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them what things YHWH had done. Then gathered the chief priests and Pharisees a council and said, "What do we? For this man doth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and nation." And one of them, named Caiaphas, being high priest that same year, said unto them, "Ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, that the whole nation perish not. This spake he not of himself, but being a high priest that year, he prophesied that YHWH should die for that nation, and not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of Yahweh that were scattered abroad. From that day forth, they took counsel together for to put him to death. He was messing up their game, their corrupt game that they had with the Romans. And because he was, they were planning to have the brother killed. Our cousin, the Messiah of the tribe of Judah. They were planning to have him killed. So they arrested him, and Pilate put him to death because they charged him with saying he was going to be a king and he was going to have a kingdom, which is all true. But they charged him because they said there is no king but Caesar. And therefore, that charge is treason. And they put him to death. We are his cousins by blood. We are the followers of his Father. We perceive that we can receive perfection of righteousness because of the righteousness of the Messiah before the Father. The Father can send us the code of perfection of righteousness and cause us to overcome all our sin. And because of this sight we've been given, we can see the corruption we're seeing, understand what it means, and know what's coming behind it. And how soon, as he has shown us what's coming behind it. Because of that message, we also will be tried for treason. And they will also seek to put us to death. The difference being, this is it. There's nothing after us. Listen, we are the last generation. There's none coming behind us. 2027, then 2032, and it's over. There's nothing coming behind us. So because we are the last one, we're more representative of Noah. Because Noah was the last generation. There was no generation behind him. It was him and the assembly of 7. And that was it. It was him and the assembly of 7. And guess what? They was family. They was family. It ain't changed. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. It's the same thing. So as we are gathering together when we can, seeking the Father, and during the interim, parts of the year, of course, we're seeking the Father. We're seeking his word. Please read your Bible. Don't be like these hypocrites that read a couple of verses or chapters and call it reading the Bible. Start in Genesis chapter 1, read through the whole thing to Revelation chapter 22, verse 21. Read everything in between and let the Father's Spirit feed you. Because that's what it is. It's not an academic exercise. It's an exercise in the Spirit. It's an exercise in surrender to the Father. It's an exercise in being sealed. Continue to do that, and the Father will bless you. And that's what he means when he says he came that we might have life and that we might have it more abundantly. Abundant life comes from the abundance of the Father's Spirit. It's not a material blessing. It's a spirit blessing. It's a blessing of perfection of righteousness that will prepare us to stand before the Son of Man and the Father in the kingdom on the sea of glass. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Right, Brother Jordan? Shalom.